Here's something interesting about how many of us immigrants answer questions at work. Someone asks, "Did you finish the report?" And the response is, "Yes, please." Or sometimes, "No, please." In many cultures, that sounds respectful. But in many American workplaces, it can actually create confusion. Today, I want to talk about this small communication habit and why understanding it is part of emotional intelligence at work. Hi, I am Marian, and on this channel, I share lessons from my journey, lived experience, and from my book, Breaking Through, the Immigrant Handbook for Thriving in the American Workplace, to help you navigate, grow, and succeed. If you're an immigrant professional trying to understand how the workplace really works, you are in the right place. In the last video, we talked about another communication habit, apologizing too much at work. Today, we are looking at something a little bit more subtle, how we answer yes or no questions. At first, this may seem like a very small issue. After all, saying yes, please sounds polite. But professional communication is not only about politeness, it's also about clarity. When communication is clear, people understand you immediately. When communication feels unsure, even if it is polite, people sometimes pause. That pause can interrupt the flow of communication. That is why understanding communication norms is part of professional growth. Where did this habit actually come from? I mean, yes, please, no, please. In some cultures, in many cultures, politeness is deeply woven into everyday conversation. And as some of you know, I am Ghanaian, and we say, yes, please, no, please. And children are taught very early to speak respectfully, to incorporate that please, mpacho, yes, please, mepacho, oh, mepacho. This is a Ghanaian language tree. You don't want to sound abrupt. You don't want to sound dismissive. You don't want to appear rude. So responses are softened. Instead of simply saying yes, people would say, yes, please. Instead of simply saying no, people will say, no, please. The intention is good. The intention is respect. But in many parts of the world, that response is perfectly normal. But when we move into a different professional environment, communication patterns can be different. In many American workplaces, communication tends to be more direct. When somebody asks a question, they expect a clear answer. For example, did you finish the report? The expected response is simple, yes, or not yet. Or you could even say no, not yet. Sometimes you may say, yes, I have, or no, not yet. But when someone hears, yes, please, the response can sound unusual, especially if they are not familiar with you. And sometimes the listener pauses for a moment, trying to interpret what was meant. Not because the response is wrong, but because it's not the typical structure used in professional communication here. I once watched something like this happen in a meeting. A manager asked, did you send the document to the client? And the response was, yes, please. For a moment, the manager paused. You could almost see the confusion. Did the person misunderstand the question? Did they mean yes, or were they asking for permission? Again, the intention behind the response was politeness, but the wording unintentionally created confusion. And in professional environments, clarity is extremely valuable. This is where emotional intelligence becomes important. And by the way, if you haven't watched our series on emotional intelligence with Dr. Ruth, please listen to it because she touches on yes, please, no, please. Many people think emotional intelligence is only about understanding feelings and how we interact. Yeah, it's all part of it, but it's also understanding. It's also about understanding how your communication is received by others. Emotional intelligence involves awareness, self-awareness, right? Awareness of your words, awareness of how others interpret these words, and awareness of how communication norms vary across cultures. Different cultures emphasize different things. Some emphasize politeness and indirectness. Others emphasize clarity and directness. Neither approach is better. But when we work in a new environment, learning the communication style of that environment helps our message come across clearly. So the adjustment here, we can make a little bit of an adjustment. Adjustment here is actually very simple. When somebody asks you a yes or no question, answer clearly. Instead of saying, yes, please, simply say yes or no or yes, I have. Simply say yes or yes, I have. Or instead of saying no, please, you could say no or not yet. If you want to sound polite, you can say yes, thank you, or maybe no, thank you. Choose what works best with you. Clear, but just be clear and polite, not confusing anybody. Be clear, easy to understand. Many professionals are navigating new workplace. Many immigrant professionals are navigating new professional culture. You may be working in a second language. You may feel pressure to prove your competence. So communication clarity becomes very important. When your communication is clear, people focus on your ideas. When your communication feels unusual, people sometimes focus on the language instead. And the goal is always to make sure your ideas are heard clearly. This is not about losing your culture. Your cultural values are important. Respect matters, courtesy matters. But professional success often involves learning how communication works in different environments. Think of it as expanding your communication toolkit. You are not abandoning your culture. You are learning how to communicate effectively across cultures. And that is a powerful professional skill. Many immigrants bring incredible strengths into the workplace. Strong work ethic, respect for others, commitment to excellence. But sometimes small communication habits from our upbringing do not translate perfectly into new professional environments. And once you become aware of these habits, you can adjust them easily. Those small adjustments can make your communication clearer and more confident. And if this message spoke to you, subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And don't stop here. Check out my other videos on how to talk about your wins at work, stop being overlooked at work as an immigrant, doing great work but still not promoted as an immigrant, having a mentor matters more as an immigrant, and emotional intelligence. All designed to help you thrive at work and in life. You deserve to grow. You deserve to thrive. And I am cheering you on. I will see you in the next video.